I like you. You people, you, whatever. There's a lot of things that I like about you. But this is a train wreck.
Every now and then, I'll watch a show that frames ideas in a fresh and exciting way that makes my brain light up. The new Apple TV show Pluribus is that for me. It's multi-dimensional storytelling that offers a myriad of interpretations and meanings. The cherry on top is here there is a leading lady, Carol, who is a sapphic, an element that is not incidental but fundamental to who she is and how she navigates the world. This is prestige storytelling of a caliber that watchers of sapphic film and TV are rarely treated to. I've enjoyed this show so much I'll be doing an episode-by-episode deep dive on my Patreon at my lowest tier, with the first video either already live or about to go live, because there is just so much to tease out that I simply can't go over in a single video. I hope you join me over there for that. Pluribus follows Carol Sturcker, who is finishing up a book tour for the fourth novel of her successful romantasy series with her manager and wife, Helen. They've just landed back in Albuquerque, New Mexico, when airplanes fly overhead spreading a virus of alien origin. Everyone goes into convulsions except for Carol, who watches as her wife falls over and injures her head on the pavement. Distraught, she races to the hospital, but everyone there is also mid-seizure. When it stops, they have all been transformed. Like an activation code going off, all the minds in the world have telepathically merged together, and what's more, each person exists in a state of total love, serenity, and happiness.
You may find this hard to believe, but yesterday was the greatest day in the history of humanity.
And they will do anything to make Carol happy while they figure out how to adapt the virus to turn her too.
We will figure out what makes you different.
Figure it out, why?
So we can fix it. So you can join us.
Only 13 people, of which Carol is one, did not join the hive mind. So, while struggling with the death of Helen, who did not make it through the joining, she gathers the immune who can speak English so that they can figure out how to save the world from this calamity. Only none of the others see a need to change the world back.
As we speak, no one is being robbed or murdered. No one is in prison. The color of one's skin, by all accounts, now meaningless. Peace on earth.
Assigned with a chaperone by the joined called Zosia, someone they think she will like and form an attachment to, Carol must face not just the apocalyptical end of the world, but her own self, which makes for a story that is at once of the grander scale, saving the world, and we even find out later, ultimately saving the universe, but also deeply personal. So yes, this show has a lesbian protagonist, and yes, her wife Helen dies in the first episode. I've often said that I'm not a fan of the bury your gays trope. We've certainly had our fair share of it, and there were a couple of shows I straight up stopped watching because of it. However, here I have given it a pass. Perhaps how that loss cracks her open is key to her journey. Perhaps they wanted her choice to destroy the hive not to be motivated by the personal gain of getting Helen back. Certainly the interweaving of the themes of grief and Carol's queerness as key to the story means it doesn't feel as egregious to me as it otherwise could have, like, say, a random bullet for shock value. I'm curious about what you think. Her death also opens things up for the storyline between Carol and Zosia to evolve, which I'm not mad about. It's not a love story in a typical sense, given the circumstances. Some might even say that it's not a love story at all, given Zosia is joined and has no individual autonomy, although, like the actress Carolina Wydra, who plays Zosia, said, I think it is, and I'll extrapolate on that later in the video. If you're looking for a sweet and easy show with a cute sapphic love story, this is not the one for you. However, if you want to dive into a complex, layered story that centers a complex, layered sapphic woman who has some serious chemistry with a certain pirate lady, then I can't recommend it enough. A warning, there are mild spoilers going forward. Let's chat about Carol. Her perspective on the joined and how she responds to it is profoundly anchored in her queer experience. It's revealed that at 16 she was sent to a conversion therapy camp by her mother, an experience that deeply impacted her.
The counselors there
Some of the worst people I have ever known. And they smiled all the time, just like you.
The joined remind her of the camp counselors that sought to cure her of a perceived sin while telling her that they loved her. It looks like conversion camp fundamentally formed Carol into who she is. It's not a happy person, and after the joining, quite possibly the most unhappy, angry person alive. She is guarded, cynical, and suspicious. She is also still closeted, showing how decades later that experience still defines her.
In real life, was there an actual man you were thinking of when you came up with Brabant?
Put George Clooney. It's safer.
We find out early on that before Helen died, she was joined long enough for all her memories to be transferred to the collective, and with that, the entire world finds out not just that Carol is gay, married to Helen, but the entire world knows her most intimate experiences, like all of them. Given her queerness has been such a delicate and private part of her identity, it makes sense that she is so angry at this violent outing and why she is so vehemently against the joined. Her biggest shame has been exposed to all, and worse, this shame has permeated itself into her work. She is a successful writer, but we find out that it's only because she kowtowed to a heteronormative expectation by making her leading character Raban a man when she had initially intended him to be a woman. This, I think, is partially why she expresses disdain for her own work in private, because it is fueled by the knowledge that she hasn't been authentic to her creative inclinations.
And the world needed yet another female character who spends all her time mooning over some fucking proud and haughty pirate.
But she also seems to genuinely light up when around her fans. It's like she is secretly proud of her work, even if it is not considered literary and looked down on for being a frivolous romantasy, and therefore she can't fully allow herself to be happy and satisfied.
Oh, how I hate all those paying customers showering me with love and respect. And why do I have to make so much money? How do you bear it?
As we get to know her better, when she asks the joined those questions about what Helen really thought of her work, her disdain for her own work takes on an added dimension. It's also a defense mechanism to protect herself from the secret fear that she's not actually good enough, a fear that seems to be confirmed when she learns that Helen thought her work as largely harmless, largely being a telling qualifier, and that the one piece of work she truly cares about, her unpublished novel Bitter Chrysalis, wasn't even good enough for Helen to read half of it. This defense mechanism is something she employs in many parts of her life, frequently making her brash and abrasive. It has the unfortunate effect of making her come off as the archetypal Karen, the white middle-class American woman who, even in an apocalypse, barges onto Air Force One, opinions blazing, expecting everyone to have her perspective on the joining.
You sit there and you tell us, we must do this, we must do that, but you don't even bother to educate yourself. Why should we listen to anything you say?
She expects everyone to fight the good fight to put everything back, but she'd rather not have to do the hard work herself, thank you very much. The entire way in which she approaches this end of the world is with righteous anger, which, of course, puts all the other immune on the back foot. No one wants anything to do with her. She is so self-absorbed she doesn't even think to ask questions that we as the audience are dying to know, such as how does being joined work? Where do they sleep? What's up with the food system? What happened to all the pets? What are the joined even doing, to name a few? She's all caught up in her anger and her grief, which, it's understandable. That feels like a very human response. But it's to a point where she doesn't even bother to learn Zosia's name. Her personality is framed as her biggest obstacle. It slows her information gathering down and cuts her off from the few individuals left on Earth, thus isolating her and making her emotionally vulnerable. In the old world, her personality was mitigated by her privilege and by her wife. Helen was Carol's buffer to the world, in a practical sense as her manager, wrangling the line of fans wanting autographs and remembering the neighbors' names, but also in an emotional sense, diffusing her self-loathing by ribbing her bad humor in a loving way. It wasn't a perfect relationship, as we find out, but they had an unspoken symbiosis that came from 20 years of being together and a genuine love. That buffer is stripped away from Carol in a moment, leaving her raw, exposed, and unfiltered. This is most strikingly revealed with how her uncontrolled emotional outbursts of anger are toxic to the joined, making them go into convulsions and causing millions to die. She needs to learn emotional regulation, let's just say that. She has her good qualities too. She's loyal, loving, and passionate. She's tenacious. Even in the face of being completely rejected by the last remaining individuals on Earth, she still wants to put things right. Some have commented that her drive seems to disappear once she thinks she is safe from being converted. And sure, without that immediate threat, she takes a breather. I don't blame her for that, but she doesn't stop. She just regroups and is willing to change tact, using a gently approach when her original attempts drive the joined away. She is willing to confront the reality of the new situation in a way only Manousos, one of the other immune, is willing to. Diabate surrounds himself with an empty fantasy of luxury and women. Lakshmi clings to the fantasy of a son who is no longer her son. Kusimayu straight up thinks the joined are great and wants to join. Through it all, Carol is painfully aware of the humans taken by the joining. She is stricken when she harms them with her emotional outbursts. She wants to give the people back their individuality because it has been stripped from them without consent, even though it still means she's lost the only person who mattered. She is a good person. She's just not a nice person. All this makes for a wonderfully complex character that I have found immensely entertaining to watch. Some have found her unlikable, probably because she has her flaws and they're not likable flaws. More than that, she doesn't act the way we expect a classic hero to act, which is probably why Manousos has received so much love. He's a fan favorite because he presents how we expect that time-honored hero should. Well, that, and I suspect it's because he's a man. After all, he shares many of the same traits as Carol, including being something of a dickhead.
Teléfono.
I don't speak Snap.
My thoughts on him and his worldview will have to wait for my Patreon videos though. The most delicious, complex, and if my gay ass may say so, the most compelling relationship on the show is that of Carol and Zosia. Like I said, Zosia is sent as a kind of chaperone to Carol while they work out how to convert her, as is their biological imperative. Zosia is patient, kind, loving, serene, or rather the joined are all of these things because she is no longer an individual, which makes her in all ways the total opposite to Carol. Even when she is placed in mortal danger at Carol's hand multiple times, she is unwavering in her regard.
Hi, Carol.
In all honesty, I think that is what Carol, in all her waspish, angry defensiveness, needs. She needs that consistent and unshakable positive regard. She certainly never got it growing up. So even though Carol finds Zosia initially annoying,
How annoying is that chick?
it seems inevitable that she should develop feelings for her. Okay, full spoilers from here on out. How the joined behave could be seen as malicious manipulation. I've certainly seen a lot of comments like that, framing them as categorically bad. After all, they purposefully seduced her with her dream woman. They abandoned her for 40 long, agonizing days as a form of psychological torture to get her exactly where they wanted her, vulnerable to their charm offensive.
Or maybe you just suck.
They leverage Helen's memories to flirt with her, to take her on cute dates, love bomb her with the diner. They want to seduce Carol into complacency by using her greatest human weakness, her need for connection and love. She won't want to destroy them if she's in love with Zosia, right? Worst of all, Zosia is the ultimate victim in all of this. She has no autonomy and therefore no agency. We don't even know if Zosia is queer or if she would be interested in Carol if yes. But what the joined are infected with doesn't care about consent. It's a parasitic virus, hungry for another host. It placates humans by injecting them with hormones to make them happy.
Serotonin, dopamine, vasopressin, oxytocin, of course.
The entire human population becomes mindless worker bees who will suck the planet dry of energy to create the mega satellite dish with which to send the virus further.
We have to share their gift with whoever else might be out there.
Viewed this way, it makes what the joined are an aberration. Yes, they have solved all the ills of humankind, but their non-violence is taken to such an extreme that they will starve, which makes their existence an anathema to life, exemplified by how, to stave off starvation, they have become cannibals. Viewed from this perspective, it's dire. It's horrific. This is the apocalypse, chillingly redefined with zombies who smile and tell you they love you as they seek to destroy everything.
This is unsustainable. It's mental illness. It's psychosis. You are starving and you can't even pick a goddamn apple off a tree. Someone has to put the world right.
Personally, however, I don't read the joined as evil or even as bad. I don't think we're meant to, just as we're not meant to read Carol as the archetypal hero. The show does a wonderful job of keeping its perspective open, encouraging more nuanced interpretations. So yes, there are some issues the joined need to work on, some pretty serious ones that if they don't sort out will spell certain doom. They act out of goodness, but the results are not always good. However, world peace is not nothing. Unconditional love and acceptance is the new human baseline. In many ways, this new state of being is unsettling, but there is an innocence to them which is interesting because it makes them vulnerable to exploitation by the immune, as we see when they take Carol's request for a hand grenade seriously.
Were you being sarcastic? You know what? We'll get rid of it. Feel better, Carol.
They will do anything asked of them because they love her, and they mean it because they don't lie. What's more, they don't have to spend time with her. They prove that when they leave town. Therefore, their decision to be around Carol is independent of their goal to convert her. They could have left her to her own devices and shown up once they had adapted the virus because they have her eggs, and they knew that when they returned at the end of episode 7. But they do come back when Carol asks, and what's more, they caught her. Perhaps there is an element of being cautious in that decision, but also, they love Carol. There was no need to build her a diner to replicate one of the happiest times of her life. If anything, they know, having the finest minds in the world to draw on, that it's a bad idea. It is noteworthy that for a hive mind so focused on efficiency, they are willing to divert so many resources to Carol and the other immune to keep them comfortable. It goes far beyond what is necessary to de-escalate the threat that they pose. So I can't see what they do as malicious, not even manipulative when viewed from their perspective. Their actions are simply arising from their love. This idea of love in the show is interesting to me because I've seen so many comments about how the joined can't truly love or that their love is not real because their individuality is gone. The feeling of love is manufactured by the virus and therefore false. I don't know. I understand that perspective because if you look at all the ins and outs, the hows and whys of the joined, if you view the story as one of them looking to control Carol, if you see it as an allegory for some hegemonic force looking to destroy individuality, then yes, it's not love. It's a poor performance of it at best. I've seen people equate the joining to a colonizing force, for example. I've seen it equated to communism. It's the terror of AI. It's COVID. Religious dogma imposing its belief, which is how Carol specifically views things, at least at first. It taps into fears about having our autonomy stripped from us along with the free will to determine our own lives. It speaks to the decimation of all diversity of our planet, all culture, language, art, music rendered meaningless because there is no one to connect with it anymore. How can any of that be love? But then there is how the joined have united all of humanity in peace and harmony, a humanity that knows what love feels like, so when they say they love, they surely must mean it. It doesn't matter that it comes from a virus, does it? The end result is that humanity is feeling unconditional love, which is arguably the purest and truest form of love there is. The fact that they love all beings the same doesn't diminish it because love is not diminished by being shared.
I know this is hard to understand, but we love him the same as we love you.
No. You can't love him the same. It's not the same.
Nor do I agree that love can only be legitimate if it is individual and specific. That's just conditional love, as it requires conditions like being limited and individual. It's how we tend to experience love as a rule, but is that the only way? Can't it be both? So my read is that they really do love Carol. Sure, they need to put in boundaries for their own safety when they leave town. It's healthy and totally fair. Carol was being feral. It was also after Carol had put them through a lot, a fact we are repeatedly reminded of when we see Zosia's bare back scarred from the hand grenade incident. So I don't necessarily agree with the idea that their love isn't legitimate or real just because it looks different. A parallel for polyamory could surely be drawn here. Of course, it doesn't mean that their behavior is benign, and they probably have a breaking point related to the collective being in genuine danger, and I expect we'll get to know more about that as the seasons go on. I think the fact that their love is unconditional and universal is something Carol is very suspicious of because it seems too fake and not human. She is used to conditional love, like her mother's. She doesn't know how to trust that love could be unconditional, even if that love now liberates her from so many of the oppressive constraints she lived under. The joined know she is gay. No one cares. When she starts to write again, her first decision is to make Raban a woman because why not? There is nothing stopping her anymore. There is no judgment now. She can now create authentically. But even after she's abandoned Manusos to go on a worldwide trip with Zosia at her side, even as she is awash in all the happy hormones, there is a part of her that can't help but pick at her happiness like a scab. Ultimately, it is what she needs to do because she's built her happiness on quicksand, a beautiful illusion to wrap herself up in because she doesn't want to face the truth. Zosia is not an individual, even if Carol wants to engage with her as if she is, and the lie must fracture. The hope there might be a spark of individuality is not unfounded. It's hinted that Zosia decouples from the hive when she is drugged and becomes confused.
What's happening?
She's dying, Carol. She's in cardiac arrest.
She's gonna be all right, isn't she?
She's gonna be fine.
In the wake of that incident, the joined refer to Zosia in the singular using she pronouns, not we. Then again, when she remembers her love of mango ice cream, her whole demeanor changes and she slips into I pronouns with an ease that she never shows otherwise.
Mango. That was my favorite.
Thank you for sharing that.
So I can't blame Carol for hoping that Zosia kissing her is because Zosia wants to kiss her, not the hive. And also the girl is desperate, broken, and touch-starved. How was she going to resist this? As a side note, I thought it was particularly interesting that one of the ways we see Carol trying to grapple with being with Zosia is to insist that she use I pronouns instead of we.
Wow. All the brains in the world and you can't navigate a fucking pronoun.
Given the politicization of pronouns through anti-trans discourse, there is an irony that a gay woman that has struggled being accepted for who she is trying to force the join to use pronouns they are clearly not comfortable with or identify with, but who still try to use them because they want to please her. I guess what all of this shows is that this dynamic between Zosia and Carol is complicated. There is no big bad here. Everything has nuance. Both sides are right and both sides are wrong. The show has taken great pains to show this and has placed no judgment on that. I think it's easy to make the join the bad guys because they do elicit a kind of airy Stepford Wives feeling in us that sets off alarm bells. It taps into our fears of that which is other and the instinct to demonize it as a result. It taps into our resistance to change. We're suspicious of it. We yearn for that which is known and therefore safe. The way the show places common sci-fi tropes like the apocalypse in the first episode, with Carol shivering in fear despite her being in no actual danger, or the dramatic revelation of how the joined are using humans as a food source, only to subvert these horror elements often through humor, is inviting us to examine our inherent biases. It feels like the end of the world, but perhaps it's actually just transitioning to something different. Carol then becomes the everyman in this scenario, the archetype of the human who wants to stay in her familiar and comfortable world because it feels safe and dependable, even if it comes at the cost of her personal truth and creative expression. The journey then becomes about her learning to open herself up to new ways of existing in the world where she gets to be who she really is without judgment. It's scary because it's unknown territory, especially as it looks like the world just upped and drank the Kool-Aid and she must fight this tyranny. She can't fathom it leading to a warmer, kinder world, especially since it involved her losing Helen. In this gentler world, it is not the joined who are dangerous, it is in fact Carol. She is repeatedly framed as the threat. She has the terrifying power to overwhelm a delicate and largely defenseless hive with her rage and kill millions. She wears a literal yellow jacket in the first episode, suggesting she is the predatory wasp in the beehive.
A wasp, even. If it's about to sting, you don't kill it?
No.
She is also framed as the deadly nightshade, belladonna, which translates to beautiful woman in English, suggesting that Carol holds some kind of attractive power to the joined, but is also poisonous to them. Or perhaps it goes both ways. Maybe Zosia is also the belladonna, given there are two flowers in the Georgia O'Keeffe painting. So yes, I do think that Carol has something the joined are drawn to. They want to be near her. How much of it is purely part of their biological imperative to subsume her into their hive mind can be debated, but I don't see Zosia kissing Carol as an outright manipulation. I think they see Carol, who is so valiantly trying not to have an emotional outburst that would send them into shock, which I'd love to see some emotional growth for her there, and want to soothe her, want to make her feel better. They know how much she needs that human touch, and out of their love for her, want to give her that. And oh boy, does Carol need that. She has no chill. There are, of course, some serious ethical issues with them sleeping together, given Zosia is in no way capable of consenting, even if she does make the first move. It has the effect of making Carol, amongst her other ornery character traits, a hypocrite. She was swift in judging Diabate for doing something not all that dissimilar. I will say that his behavior feels more exploitative and slimy than Carol's, and of course Carol had just been isolated from all of humanity for those 40 agonizing days. From the hug, it's clear how desperate she is. I do think it's noteworthy that when Zosia wakes up the morning after their first night together, she smiles. It's not done for Carol's sake, it's a genuine smile because she's happy to hear the sound of Carol writing again. The enthusiasm the joined show for Carol's writing doesn't feel fake to me.
We are just so excited to have something new to read. And another white Cara. That's only if you want to share with us. Of course, absolutely no pressure.
And when Carol gives Zosia that first chapter of her next novel, it's the most animated we've seen Zosia or any of the other joined be. Her face is alight with joy at having something new to read and think about. I think this is key. Novelty, new information or experiences are almost impossible for them. There is no doubt innovation going on, it's simply nowhere near as dynamic as before. Carol, and probably to a lesser extent the other 12, offer the joined novelty. Carol, as the last writer on Earth, is the only person left that can make up stories. She is an anomaly. She is precious. The rather nerdy discussion that follows as they talk about how Carol will use the world building of her novel to retcon her leading man into a leading lady is enthusiastic, and it's this that makes me feel whatever is evolving between Carol and Zosia is not all smoke, mirrors, and manipulation. But unsurprisingly, this romantic dalliance does not last. She thinks that they can't convert her without consent, so she thinks she's got time. She can take a little vacay from the overwhelming task of saving the universe. When Manousos arrives, he serves as a kind of mirror to show Carol how far she has strayed from her initial intention. She's mortified when he finds out everything from Zosia.
What kind of everything did you tell?
Sorry, Carol.
Did you tell him?
When she protests that Zosia can't love Manousos the same as she loves Carol, it reveals how she's been squaring things in her head.
You were my chaperone. Mine.
She might not be able to fully fool herself into believing Zosia is an individual, that she is her girlfriend, but she can pretend she's not sleeping with the whole entire world. The moments we're shown on her trip around the world with Zosia is interesting. It's Carol and Zosia alone in these idyllic places, but it's always them apart. Carol watching Zosia from afar as she swims in the pool. They walk separate on the beach. We don't even see Zosia's face, just her scars. They sit in a bathtub at opposite ends, the barrier of the tea tray between them. They walk out of step to the ski lodge. It has a dreamlike quality that Carol is about to be rudely awakened from. Zosia reveals that they have her frozen eggs that Carol and Helen extracted years before, and that they can use this to figure out how to convert Carol. For Carol, this is the ultimate betrayal, made only more gutting because she has allowed herself to fall for Zosia. And, more importantly, perhaps for the first time in her life, she's allowed herself to feel happy.
I must have every happy chemical flowing in my bloodstream. I keep thinking it's going to go away, but then it doesn't. And I don't want it to.
Perhaps even more than the frozen eggs, it is how Zosia says that she has to do this because she loves Carol using the pronoun I that completely breaks the illusion.
If you loved me, you wouldn't do this.
Please understand, we have to do this because we love you. Because I love you.
The final parting glance between her and Zosia is laden. Zosia looks as though she wants Carol to stay. She doesn't seem indifferent to the event, even if she will accept Carol's decision. For Carol, it doesn't look like she wants to leave Zosia either, but the entire first season has been driving to this moment where Carol had to make a choice, the girl or the world. As the ultimate reluctant hero, she tried everything, including the girl, and ultimately the only choice left is the world. Being the dramatic lesbian she is, she seals that decision with a nuclear bomb deposited in her driveway. I mean, that's one way to deal with a breakup. Now, Vince Gilligan said that this is not a mystery box show, meaning there won't be a massive revelation to completely recontextualize what we've been shown. I'm assuming that we've been given the essential information for what the show is ultimately going to be about. I don't honestly know where things will go, or even if how I've interpreted the show so far will bear out. However, at this point, my expectation is the show will lean more into this being an allegory of the human condition. I know Carol and Manousos want to destroy the hive and return people back to their individual selves, but ultimately, I don't feel like that would make for a satisfying conclusion to the series. The return to war, famine, and greed, the pain of 1 billion people dead, and the chaos that would invariably lead to more deaths from a decimated world supply chain. It would be an abject nightmare. I understand the desire Carol and Manousos have to reinstate what was, but there is no way to do that without it being infinitely more traumatic than the joining. From my perspective, there is no going back. The hive as it is, however, can also not be the end game because it would mean all immune, including Carol, becoming joined, and it would mean the total annihilation of the human species and the world sucked dry of energy. I hope the ultimate direction for the show resides somewhere in the middle of these two realities, using the relationship between Carol and Zosia as the prism through which we can get there. It's them evolving together like two puzzle pieces to create the key. I can see Carol's novel playing an important role in how that comes about, although I couldn't say exactly how. Zosia might become unjoined temporarily, but I don't know about her permanently unjoining. It would create a very different dynamic, and I don't know that the show will explore that. Mostly, however, I don't think they'll mess with Zosia being Carol's interface with the hive. They know that they have hit gold there. Ideally, I want to see the joined figuring out how to switch off that biological imperative and then adapt to a sustainable ethos where they can farm for food, allowing a measure of individuality to be restored where people can still make choices without losing the good the joining has offered. It would of course also involve Carol and Zosia ending up in love, because in the end it's all about love and I am a shipper after all. And also Carol would obviously remain an individual, but she would also heal her grief and trauma. I'm sure that what Vince Gilligan comes up with will be more complex and compelling than that. I hope you'll join me on my Patreon for my deep dive into this deliciously dense show, and until next time, lady lovers.